In this video, I'm going to talk about Kant's principle of humanity. In particular, we're going to look at sort of how would it evaluate moral actions and the ethics of particular decisions. So you'll remember from previous videos, we've talked about some other theories of right action already. So one sort of family of theories, right, this consequentialist family, and there we looked at act utilitarianism. So these kinds of theories focus on the consequences of our actions. What are the effects? What happens after we do the thing? And act utilitarians think the act we should perform is whatever is going to produce the best balance of pleasure to pain or the best balance of happiness to sadness. And so for the utilitarian, right, it's forward-looking. It's a sort of third personal view. We look from the God's eye perspective and we ask ourselves, like, which of these actions that are available to me is going to produce the best consequences? What's going to have the best results? When we shifted to deontology, we looked at Kant's principle of universalizability first, right? And that principle says something like, rather than looking to the consequences, we need to look at what's fair or what kind of principles we would want everyone to act on. So rather than looking sort of past the action into the future, we look at the action itself. We don't need to really compare it to other things. We can just ask ourselves, is this principle that we're acting on something that a principle that we would want everyone to act on, that we would will as a universal law? And that theory captures this idea that when we act morally, if our action is going to be moral, it needs to be fair. It needs to be the kind of thing that we would want other people to do. Act utilitarianism sometimes tells us to do things that seem unfair, seem like it wouldn't be fair to do those things. Today we're going to look at Kant's principle of humanity and what this principle is doing. Now Kant, maybe I should start with this. Kant thought that the principle of universalizability and the principle of humanity were just different ways of articulating the sort of fundamental moral rule, which he called the categorical imperative. That jargon isn't important, but the thing that is important is just to get a sense that Kant thought that whatever the verdicts the principle of universalizability got, the principle of humanity should say sort of the same thing. So he doesn't see these as sort of giving us radically different views of how morality works, just of different ways of understanding what our moral responsibilities or our moral obligations are. So the principle of humanity focuses on respect. So whereas the principle of universalizability was about fairness, the principle of humanity is about respect and treating each other, treating other people, right, as with respect and as equals. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about how that works. To sort of introduce the principle of humanity, I want to look back at hedonism. So you remember consequentialists and utilitarians, utilitarians, I guess, in particular, are hedonists. Right? They hold that what's special about humans and animals is that they can experience pleasure and pain. So we're trying to maximize that for the utilitarian. We're always trying to bring about the most pleasure, the least pain. For Kant, what's special about human beings isn't that fact. It's that humans are autonomous and that they're rational. So when I say that they're autonomous, I want to emphasize the fact that they have control over their actions. Maybe we think they have free will. When we talk about their being rational, I want to emphasize the fact that they act for reasons, whereas a dog might act for reasons in one sense, in that sort of it smells something that smells good, it's going to go investigate what that smell is. Humans act for reasons in a different sense, rather than, the smell of something doesn't sort of force us, like it might force a dog to behave in a certain way. The thought is the smell sort of acts as a reason for us to go into the kitchen or something like that. And it's a reason that we can resist. So those reasons, the role that they play in a dog's actions is maybe they explain the dog's actions, but in a human, our reasons justify our actions. That is, they sort of are a kind of defense or that sort of thing. So whereas utilitarians emphasize the importance of maximizing pleasure and pain, Kant's going to emphasize the importance of respecting autonomy and rationality. So that's sort of a difference between Kant's view and some of the other views, in particular utilitarianism that we've looked at before. Now, what is Kant's principle of humanity? What does it say? It says this: an action is morally permissible if and only if it treats humanity, whether in oneself or in others, as an end and never as a mere means. Now note that whereas utilitarianism was saying that the permissibility of an action has to do with its consequences, this theory says the permissibility depends on whether or not it treats humanity as an end and not as a mere means. So in order to understand what that means, we're going to need to learn about these three sort of words or phrases. So humanity, what does that refer to? What does it mean to treat someone as an end? And finally, what does it mean to treat someone as a mere means? So to start, humanity, by humanity he means autonomous and rational beings. We'll learn in a second that by an end he means to treat it with respect. We'll get to that in a second, but here I want to focus on the autonomy and the rationality. What are autonomous beings? Again, beings who are free, they have control over their actions, like people, and they're rational, they act for reasons. Adult humans aren't the only things, right? Aliens, space aliens might count too, right? You know, maybe not all living things on other planets, but if there are some other beings like ET or something that are autonomous, they seem to control their actions, they're rational, they act for reasons, then those are the things we need to treat with respect to. So if they land on our planet, we can't just blow them up and say, oh, good, they were just a different species. It's not about being human per se, it's about having the features that humanity has, the autonomy and the rationality. Now note that like you might think kids, fetuses, animals, things like that aren't going to meet this requirement. So for Kant, right, we don't have to treat them with respect. Now, maybe we should, or maybe there's some sort of other explanation or story about why kids should be treated with respect, or fetuses even, right? Maybe it's their potential for being autonomous and rational that explains that, but we'll talk more about that later. Why should we respect these beings? Like I said, they're free and they act for reasons just like us. So the thought here has to do with privileging certain views over others. Since these other beings are free and they act for reasons, well, there's no reason to suspect that our judgments are better than theirs. So if they think that they should do X and we think that they should do some other thing Y, we can't sort of impose our view on them because maybe they've got good reasons for doing what they're doing and maybe we're wrong. So when there's this clash of values, clash about what we think people should do, we need to give other people the freedom to do what they want. All right, so that's what it means to treat humanity as an end and not as a mere means. So there we're focused on humanity. Here we're going to focus on what does it mean to treat humanity as an end. To treat humanity as an end is to treat it as an autonomous and rational being. Sorry. To treat it as an end is to treat it with respect. So you might think of the Aretha Franklin, right? RESPECT, follow Kant's principle of humanity. Haha, dad joke. All right, anyway, treating people with respect is the idea here. And what does that mean? It means to treat these beings as having inherent value. So what does it mean to have inherent value? It means that you're valuable regardless of the sort of things you can do for other people, regardless of your interests, your job performance, your looks, right? So even if, you and I don't have the same interests, maybe you don't like Roger Federer, or you hate golf, I still owe you respect because you have an inherent value as an autonomous, rational being. Even if you are horrible at your job, right? Maybe you're not the best student. Well, you still deserve respect because you're a person. Right? And finally, even if you look ugly, that doesn't mean you're any less deserving of respect than people who are beautiful, right? The thought here is that there's something about all humans that's inherently valuable, regardless of, the ways in which they're good or bad for us. Finally, I want to just point out sort of questions about what it takes or what treating someone with inherent value requires. And it clearly requires like not harming them for trivial reasons or something like that. But whether it requires benefiting them is a little bit unclear. So treating someone with respect means I can't like harm them for my own purposes, but do I have to benefit them? Not obvious there. Okay, finally, I want to say something about treating people as mere means. To treat someone as a mere means is to treat it as an object or a tool, to treat it disrespectfully. So an example I sometimes give in class is, imagine, right, the door of our class isn't staying open and the door stopper is not working, something like that. And so I really need a door stopper. I can't grab a student and clunk them on the head and knock them out and then lay them in front of the door. Right? That would be treating a person as an object or a tool for my own purposes. Right? That would be disrespectful. So we can't do that. Treating people in this way is, right, treating them as instrumentally valuable. Right? It's just having value insofar as it's useful. They're useful to us. Harming someone for a trivial gain, right? In the case of the doorstop example, clear case of treating someone as a mere means. That's the thing we have to avoid. So as long as our actions aren't treating people as mere means, as long as they're treating people as ends, then we're allowed to do the thing. So now let's look at how to apply it to some cases. So we'll start with a case that we talked a little bit about last time, this case where a doctor has 5 sick patients. Those are the patients on the right. They all need a different organ. And then a healthy patient comes into the hospital and they've got 5 healthy organs. And you're like, oh, great, I can kill this healthy patient, cut them up, take their organs, redistribute them. I'll save the 5 sick patients. Yeah, true, the one will die, but that happens. That's life. Life's unfair. Is that okay to do according to Kant's principle of humanity? In this case, right, as in all the other cases, we ask ourselves this question: does this agent treat anyone as a mere means in this case? Is the doctor using anyone for his purposes or her purposes? Answer: yes. Although the doctor is treating the 5 sick patients as ends, that is, as people with respect, the doctor is not treating the healthy patient as an end. He's treating the healthy patient as a mere means. And by killing that patient, the doctor is violating their autonomy. It's imposing their view of the good onto the healthy patient. Now, one thing Kant wants to point out is that the doctor could do this one thing, right? It could sort of ask the healthy patient if he'd be willing to sacrifice his organs for the sick patients. So the thought is like, the doctor can't just cut up the healthy patient and redistribute the organs, but what he can do is he can say, hey there, like I notice you look like you've got great organs. I've got these 5 people over here who are dying. If you'd be willing to sacrifice your organs, I can save those 5 people. Are you up for it? And, probably that person's not going to go for that option. But at least on Kant's view, we can try and reason with them. So we can try and convince them that this would be the best thing for them to do, and try and convince them. One thing that's kind of interesting to note here is that we can't really do the same thing with animals or with children. So note that, right, if there was this dog who had 5 healthy organs and 5 dying dogs, and you really thought like, hey, it'd be better for these 5 dying dogs to live, even if it requires killing this one healthy dog. We can't try and reason with the dog. We can't try and say like, hey, you know what? It would be really best for you to sacrifice yourself for these other 5. The dog, can't say anything like woof woof. We can't get its consent. We can't know whether or not it agreed to that. So in that kind of situation, we're kind of stuck. And maybe that makes it okay, right, to treat dogs. Maybe that kind of explains why humans are different than dogs. We can reason with humans, can't reason with dogs. Therefore, we can kind of use them, treat them as mere means, or we can use them for our own purposes in a way that we can't do to humans. All right, well, let's consider another example, the hairstylist. So you might think, well, if I can't treat people as a mere means, then maybe my hairstylist is treating me as a mere means when she's cutting my hair. Or maybe I'm treating the grocery store clerk as a mere means when I'm checking out at the grocery store, because I'm really using them for my purposes. The hairstylist is using me by cutting my hair and to get money, and something's wrong with that. So let's ask about that. Is the hairstylist treating anyone as a mere means? This depends, right? So in general, the answer is no. So as long as the stylist is getting the customer's consent, then she's not treating anyone as a mere means. And obviously, right, usually that's what's happening. But if the stylist doesn't get the customer's consent, then yeah, she is treating someone as a mere means. She's using them. Imagine, right, that you say, oh, I want my hair such and such a way, and then the hairstylist comes in and cuts it a very different way. In that case, I haven't given the stylist consent to cut my hair that way, and so she's doing something wrong. But a different scenario, right? If I say to her, well, go ahead and cut my hair however you think it's best, then in that case, even if I don't like my haircut at the end, I did give her consent to sort of do what she thought would be best. And so I can't object that she's treated me as a mere means or treated me disrespectfully. The point here, what's the point, John? The point here is just that just because people are paying each other money or like exchanging goods doesn't mean we're treating them as a mere means. If they're agreeing, if they're sort of okay with the exchange, then that looks like it's fine. Now that raises a problem. You might think, maybe you were thinking about one example, I think that's sort of an obvious autonomy violation is slavery or human trafficking. So when we think about the slave trader, human trafficking, do those sorts of people treat someone as a mere means? And the answer is obviously yes, right? These are paradigmatic examples of treating someone as a mere means. You're violating their autonomy, you're using them for your own purposes, yada, yada, yada. But you might think, well, what if I agree to slavery? Would it still be treating me as a mere means, right? I can agree to have my hair cut, so maybe I can agree to slavery too. And people's opinions on this are mixed. So some people think, yeah, if you agree to be enslaved, then it's okay for people to treat you that way, right? Think of sweatshops or something. Some people think, yeah, sweatshops are bad, but it's better for those people that they have a job at all rather than no job, and so they can consent to that treatment. But other people think, no, even if you're in a really bad situation, there are some kinds of treatment that are just so bad that you just can't validly consent to them. So here I'm drawing a distinction between consent, what you sort of say you agree to, and what is valid consent, what actually changes the situation. So when someone holds me up at gunpoint and says, hey, give me your money or I'll kill you, I might hand my money over and I've consented, I've given them my money, but that doesn't give them a moral claim to my money. Why not? Well, because I haven't given them valid consent. The only reason I consented was under these sort of conditions of coercion, and maybe something's going on. I suspect something similar is going on in cases of slavery or the sweatshop worker. So the point is, even if someone consents to be enslaved, that might still be treating them as a mere means to enslave them. That is, there may be some kinds of treatment that people just can't validly consent to, no matter what. All right. Another case, the trolley kind of case we looked at when we were talking about act utilitarianism. Trolley's heading for 5 people, they're going to get crushed, or you flip the switch to redirect it. Now, remember, almost everybody's view in this case is that they should flip the switch to kill the one. And that sort of, we thought, spoke in favor of utilitarianism. Can Kant's principle of humanity get the same result? We would want it to, but you might think, oh no, it's treating that one person as a mere means, right? We're sort of saving the 5, but only by means of killing the one. So do you treat anyone as a mere means in the switch case? I think probably not, right? So you clearly don't treat the 5 people on the track as a mere means, right? You're saving their life, you're respecting them. But it's a little bit less clear whether you treat the one person as a mere means. One question I ask here, right? Is directing a dangerous object towards someone disrespectful, or is it a violation of their autonomy? And you might think ordinarily, yeah, it is, because it's going to kill them or injure them or something like that. So yeah, you can't direct a dangerous object towards someone. But it's different if it's headed towards like 5 other people. So, an asteroid is headed for 5 people. If I redirect it towards one person, or it's headed towards a large town, I redirect it towards a small town. Am I treating the people in the small town as mere means? No, I think not really. I'm just trying to minimize the damage. I'm not using them for my purposes. just redirecting this object to try and save as many people as possible. So I think Kant's principle of humanity can kind of get this case right. You're not treating that one person as a mere means. You are sort of doing an action that harms them, but you're not using them to achieve your goal. A final case I want to consider here is the case of factory farming. Here we've got like a factory farm with egg-laying hens. And some people object to this. They say, look, this is horrible. The chickens are living in horrible conditions. They're living in their own waste. They're, never get a chance to stand on solid ground. They're standing on wire, cages their whole lives. Their feathers often will fall off. They're rubbing up against them. These chickens actually look pretty good for living in cages. Oftentimes, a thing they do is they'll trim their beaks off so they can't peck each other. So the sort of life of a factory farm animal is really horrible. So one thing we might ask is, do the people working on factory farms or people who buy and eat factory farm meat, are they treating anyone as a mere means? And you might suspect what Kant says here. You might think, oh yeah, they're treating the animals. But note that even though factory farming is treating these animals as mere means, it's not okay on Kant's that is okay on Kant's view because animals aren't autonomous rational beings. So there's no people being treated as mere means. There are animals that are being treated as mere means. But again, it's okay to treat animals as mere means. They're not autonomous. They're not rational. We can use them for our purposes. Some people think that this is a problem with Kant's view, and it leads them to sort of think, well, maybe the sort of idea is right, but maybe humanity isn't the right thing that we should be focused on. Maybe we should be focused on all conscious beings. So someone like Tom Reagan is an animal ethicist who says we need to just extend Kant's principle to all conscious beings, and so it should say an act's permissible if and only if it treats conscious beings as ends and not as mere means. On that kind of view, right, the factory farmer is doing something wrong because he's treating the chickens as a mere means. He's using the chickens for his own purposes, or the person who buys and eats the factory farm meat is sort of contributing to this practice, right? They're complicit in a practice that treats animals as a mere means, so it's wrong. Environmental ethicists go even further, right? They say, well, maybe this principle should extend even to all living things, to all species, or to all ecosystems. It can sometimes, it might seem a little strange to think we can't even treat plants as mere means, or what about, ecosystems? What does it mean to treat an ecosystem as a mere means? The thought is just we can't wreck these things, we can't destroy them for no good reason. We've got to treat them with respect as something that sort of has a life of its own, a sort of good of its own. We need to be respectful as a result. You might think with species especially, why are we so caught up with preserving, these endangered species? Is it to maximize utility or something? No, it seems like it's a huge resource suck. But maybe we owe some kind of respect to the species that explains why we want to protect them. In review, Kant's principle of humanity says an act is permissible if and only if it treats humanity, whether in oneself or in others, as an end and not as a mere means. If we're going to apply this principle, we want to start by asking, does this action that we're looking at, does it treat any autonomous rational agents as mere means? That is it violating anyone's autonomy? Is it treating anyone disrespectfully? And if so, then it's wrong. But if it passes that test, we might sort of look to this other test. And this is going beyond Kant's principle, but it's a principle about rights or respect. We might be asking this question: does the action treat anything else? Fetuses, children, animals, plants, species, ecos. Is it treating anything as a mere means? Is it using anything to further its purposes, and is it being disrespectful? And if so, then it might be wrong, maybe not on Kant's view per se, but on the same kind of view, the same kind of deontological view, but just one that an animal ethicist or a environmental ethicist thinks is true. All right, that's it for now. I'll stop there. Have a good one.